What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm sitting here with Cameron Selby, and we're going to be going over the linebacker position for the 2025 NFL Draft and ranking these guys, talking about some honorable mentions. If you have enjoyed our content through this whole draft process, please like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Tell us where we're wrong. Tell us where we're right. Tell us what you disagree with completely. And, it's a fun class. This is actually a better linebacker class than we had last year, so it's good to talk about some of these guys. But yeah.
Yeah, that this is your bread and butter. This position you played in college. There's some good names in here that we really like, honestly, and we think some of our favorite value picks are going to come from this position because even the guys that are well regarded and liked
Mm-hmm.
might start falling due to injuries or what have you. So there's so much to look forward to. There's even guys that we'll talk about in our honorable mentions that were very hyped, but just have no athleticism or size, but
Fair.
they're just really good at being a good linebacker. So I'd say let's jump right into it. Kick it off with some honorable mentions.
Let's get it. So starting off, you can see the four honorable mentions on the board. You have Jack Kaiser out of Notre Dame. Jack Kaiser was one of the best players on the Notre Dame squad that got to the college football championship. And with him, he's a very intelligent player, very kind of good at scraping and finding the football. Really good in coverage, in zone coverage. He looks for work really well. He had a really, really solid missed tackle rate. And if y'all know me, that is one of my favorite things. That's something I'll talk about every time we get on here about the safeties, the corners, all of them. Missed tackle rate is so important because tackling at the college level versus the NFL level is just such a big difference. You're playing the best of the best. So if you have a low tackle rate in college, hopefully that, and most of the time that actually helps at the next level. So I think that that's really important. Um, he wraps up really well, and drives his feet, and that's kind of the biggest reasons why that tackle rate stays so good. He has some tendencies to run into the middle of blockers. I think that's, I've never enjoyed that. That's always been a bad decision, if you ask me, because those guys are built in a way to stop you when you run into them. So don't do that. But he seems to find the way to hit the middle. I think, the trick is to, of course, take half a man, and he doesn't do that. So that's a problem. But he's a little older. His athleticism is just kind of average. So that's kind of why he's on this honorable mentions list and not on the actual list. Jay Higgins, guy that I want to put higher, man. It's so sad because he's an AP first team All American. He had the most tackles in the NCAA last year. And 2 years ago, I apologize, in 2023. And he had a 93.0 coverage grade. Like, he did some good things. He loves contact. He loves to hit people. Old school style linebacker, but he also has the athleticism of an old school style linebacker. One of the worst relative athletic scores from the combine of any player. And he's just not a good athlete. Tightness in the hips, not quick, not fast. Man coverage is a liability, and he kind of missed too many tackles this year. While last year he had better tackle percent. He had a 10.4 missed tackle rate this year, which I was like, dang, like I wanted to like this guy. He could end up being a really good football player at the next level. I just can't put him higher because his overall ceiling floor combo is just too low for me. Cody Lindenberg, he is a typical linebacker. 13.1 missed tackle rate was terrible, though. And that's kind of why he fits on this list. He's a high IQ, play recognition voice on the field. He's a downhill Mike linebacker. He's going to talk to you. He's going to tell you what you need to do. I do believe he's a very smart athlete. Comfortable in zone coverage. His pursuit's good. Cons, athleticism. Another guy that lacks some athleticism. Lateral change of direction issues. And then, of course, missed tackles. I can't get over that. So that's probably the biggest problem with him. But I think he's solid. And then the last guy is Cody Simon. Cody Simon, once again, he was a leader on the national championship team on defense. He did some really good things. He had 7.5 tackles per game, but he also had 11.5 missed tackle rate. He also is a subpar athlete. And one of the biggest things with him was he came into Ohio State, got an opportunity to started for a little while, and then lost his job and had to sit on the bench for a little while, for a couple of years before he got it back this year. Of course, he's a leader. He's a really great player for a college player, but I don't know that it is going to transcend into the NFL.
Yes, I mean a lot of interesting names on this list, and I think all these guys who more than likely are going to be day three picks can
Mm-hmm.
all contribute right away. Jay Higgins is the most notable because, like you said, he was a unanimous All American this year, and all of it is straight up his athleticism. Like
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah,
It's
it's so
sadness
sad,
size.
man.
But I mean, he was just one of the highest graded linebackers each of the last 2 years. Two-time first team All Big Ten. He had 171 tackles in 2023.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Insane. And then took a dip down to only 124. But he had 4 interceptions. So you're an unathletic guy, but you're the second best coverage graded linebacker in the country.
I don't understand.
So
Enigma.
it doesn't make sense, but he's an enigma that probably is going to be drafted way later.
Mm-hmm.
And I think looking back on it, he's one of those few candidates that it's just going to be like, man, we just overthought this way too much.
That's possible. He's a good football player, and football players are normally my bread and butter. I like football players, but oh my God, he's so unathletic. He's about as athletic as me
Yeah.
coming out of college. Like it's none of my friends. Don't anybody that watches this video that knows me, don't comment on that, please. But yeah, no, that's part of the issue. Is like, geez, like I just want him to be like I want him to be the top linebacker in this class. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. And he just can't be because of all those issues. And Iowa was down this year and those types of things too. That didn't help him, but it is what it is. Let's go on to the next guys. At 7 and 8 here. This is the next group in here. And we have Danny Stutzman. Danny Stutzman is a guy that I thought was going to be possibly higher. And coming into the year, he was a guy that he's probably fallen as one of the, favorites to be top linebacker in the class. But he does a lot of good things right. And he was a second team All American and he fell, kind of thing. But it has a lot to do with the fact that he is only good at stopping the run. 91.2 run grade, really good. 47.7 coverage grade. Awful. He had a 12.2 missed tackle rate, but he has more athleticism than the guys on the honorable mentions list that kind of keeps him a little bit higher. He's got great size and frame. I mean, absolutely great for the position. Great at forcing half a man blocks. We talked about that with Jack Kaiser. I mean, he takes on half a man and is able to run through it and does a good job of that. Change of direction is really solid, and he's hard to block in space, which is something that is really good to see, especially with how athletic, you might see some of these other guys be. At the offensive line position is what I'm talking about. I think he's athletic enough to play some man if he has to, and he's alignment versatile at any inside linebacker spot, but I think he's mostly a Mike because of the fact that he's downhill tackler and not so great in coverage. He's kind of overly aggressive. Like I mean, he's borderline overly aggressive. He overruns plays at times. He misses gaps and he doesn't stack. And stacking means like when you run a 2-gap scheme, like you stack behind the defensive tackle and you wait for the running back to kind of decide, or you wait for the double team to split. So if the double team splits, the defensive tackle takes both gaps and you can play a different gap depending on what your scheme is. He does not wait. The man is like, oh, that I see an open hole and I'm running. And I'm like, bro, like that's not how it works, but okay. So he doesn't wait. He doesn't. He's overly aggressive for sure, but he's a good football player. Next guy is Barrett Carter. He is a third-team All-American last year, 47.8 coverage grade. There's another guy that just has coverage skill issues. 10% missed tackle rate. I was actually surprised though by his coverage skills issues, like the number that it shows on the board. 47.7 on the board. I'm sorry. Attacks running backs when in man though. He's good at that, and I think he can cover against tight ends. So I actually thought that he was better at that. I think it's mostly in zone that he doesn't look for work and he doesn't, jump the look and stuff like that I think is important. So that was kind of an issue. He's a very athletic linebacker though. Good rusher from depth, alignment versatile and stuff like that. Good pursuit angles. Not always under control. But and that kind of feeds into that 10% missed tackle rate. But I think he's a good player, and he does have a hard time in the run game at times. But it's just he doesn't get off blocks well. He needs to attack. he's the opposite of Danny, where Danny's like, I'm going, I don't care. I don't even know where the ball's at. And then you have Barrett, who's like waits a little bit too long, and he misses gaps and angles because of it.
Yeah, I mean these two kind of similar in the regard of just being very strong against the run, like you said, very poor against the pass. I mean Danny Stressman, best run stopping grade in the class,
Mm-hmm.
worst coverage grade in the class. Just very black and white.
Yep.
But the thing is, he does produce, and he's always around the football. 3 straight years to end his college career with 100 plus tackles, which is very very impressive. The durability to do that and just be around the football is impressive nonetheless. And then Barrett Carter, like you said, just kind of has some work to do. I think it's one of the true projects, but consistency was there in terms of statistics, at least
Right.
3 straight seasons with at least 10 tackles for loss, which is good to see, and had a decent amount of pass deflections for somebody that's really bad in coverage in terms of coverage grade.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, just kind of they're kind of smack dab in the middle.
Both
Um,
all Americans.
Yeah.
And there's serious flaws, but they both were the best at the position in the country, type of thing. Next up, Demetrius Knight Jr. He is the heat-seeking missile. We talked about him. Me and Dustin definitely talked about him. I think me and you also for the combine video or the Senior Bowl videos. 85.8 run grade, good in that. Quick trigger, can go very fast at times, and he decides he has very good mental discipline to decide when to go. Length and frame is awesome. He's huge. I mean, 6'2", 235. He looks bigger on film. Strength and capable of removing offensive linemen and making them feel it, kind of thing. Like the enforcer that you want on your team. He's kind of the guy that doesn't allow players to fall forward. Like he hits them and they're going the other way, or at least parallel to where they got hit. But he does have a tendency to look like he has some issues only being in the box. Like he can only play offensive tackle to offensive tackle at times. Playing in space can be a really big issue for him, and tackling in space obviously added to that. He's a rounded runner. He doesn't stick his foot in the ground all the time and change directions in space. So he needs to work on that. And he's 25 at the start of the season. And he would possibly be higher on this list if he wasn't so much older than everybody else. Because I think this is obviously his, like, where he's at as a player. I don't think there's a lot of getting better after this point. So I think that's why he sits at this spot rather than higher on the list.
Yeah, I mean, he's was in college 6 years. It took him a while to get going. I mean, his whole 4 years that he was at Georgia Tech combined for like 51 tackles in those 4 years. So just really not part of much of what they were doing. Then he transferred over to Charlotte, had a really good breakout year with 96 tackles, 3 picks, and then this year he was just kind of one of the most well-balanced linebackers in the country. I mean, he had 75 coverage grade, 85 run stop grade, 78 pass rush grade, which is one of the best in the class. So a lot to like with him. It's just purely the age, and this is probably what you get with him. But how long can he, keep that up? I mean, it's not like linebackers one that you need truly a ton of youth
Right.
to play the positions. You just need the knacks and the smarts, which, if he has that and he was just kind of a late bloomer, so be it. But he's just kind of, he's already there, what you get. So probably going to be a mid-round pick that just kind of could work out for you and be a part of your rotation for some years.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could be a starter if he goes to the right system and plays Mike, and is the downhill enforcer, like I said, like that fits his abilities and stuff. The next guy on the list is going to be Oregon's Jeffrey Bassa. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with Jeffrey. I have issues with unproductive linebackers. Like, if you're not getting 5 or 6 tackles per game, like, we need to talk, because like you need to be, getting in there and getting in the fray. You know what I'm saying? Like we're here to, hit people and like make people uncomfortable. and he played more like a Sam nickel type of player for them. And I was kind of questioning that. They do have a inside linebacker that's pretty good at football. Can't remember his name off the top of my head. It starts with a B. He's a big white boy. I don't remember his name though. That kind of took on like that enforcer role and played the mic, but I wanted to see Jeffrey kind of get in there and make some plays and stuff like that, especially 3.9 tackles per game is not good enough. It won't be.
No.
So that's my big thing with him. His size and frame's a little small, his arm length, and he's not great against the run, but I loved what I saw when he actually got to play the position I thought he made the most sense for. Not Sam, not way outside where he can't get in there and help. Will, where he got opportunities to play at the Senior Bowl, got to play some Will, and I thought he looked much better. I thought he was in there making plays, running to the ball, all those things. I don't want him to be just a Senior Bowl athlete, though, and we always talk about those guys as just Senior Bowl athletes. But I think he's solid in coverage, can play tight ends and running backs, so that's a plus. And his overall speed is really, really solid. So I thought that he looks game speed fast. So he's really one of those guys I kind of fight internally with because production is very important to me, but also at the same time, I like players that have upside athletically. So he goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of one of those give or take things because we see a lot of linebackers that are athletic and have all the tools, but then they're just, either schematically or just fundamentally just not great
Yep.
at being consistent and stuff like that. We've seen time and time again, like the Isaiah Simmons of the world, Devin Whites, and I could go on and on about linebackers that just get vaulted up because they're just awesome athletically and they make plays, but there's a lot that is missed. So it's kind of like a give and take relationship.
Right.
But it's also at the same time, sometimes it's preferable compared to like, hey, you're not doing something to cost us games, but you're also not, you're just there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where are you kind of thing. And so you don't want to be a linebacker with 55 games under your belt and kind of being like almost disappearing. I mean, the 3.9 tackles per game, like you said, is by far the lowest.
Oh, yeah.
There's the only one that's below 5.5 is Jalen Walker, who he's more of a hybrid edge kind of player. So he's not situationally just back there just ready to
right.
lay hats.
And they love rotating players at Georgia because they have thousands of them.
Yeah, they do.
Small
Diamond does.
Mundum is their backup linebacker.
Mhm. But yeah, I mean he's one that is just like he's good in a lot of spots. He's not great anywhere. And so he's got to kind of refine his game to where it's like, where are you, better amongst your peers?
Right.
Because you can't just be league average everywhere because this is one of these positions that you can really have a falling out pretty fast if you are.
Yeah, and a lot of people like him. Like he's high on a lot of boards. And I think, honestly, I think 5 is pretty high for our board, because there's, only five is like right there between the next best guy up. Like you could say like, I don't have him in the tier with the next guys, but you could make a case that he could be in the next tier. But he has to show it. He didn't show it. And I know there's a ton of good players at Oregon. I'm not saying that, like, obviously sometimes you have less tackles because you're around absolute studs. I want my linebackers to be studs. That's all I'm saying. And
Right.
I didn't see that, obviously, from a 3.9 tackle per game and on film. It did not go together. So I need to see more, but he is 5. And he is upside, which is always good to see. But now let's use it and let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is Chris Paul Jr. This is Chris Pooh Paul from
The point guard?
yeah, no. His nickname is Pooh. His nickname is Pooh. Yep. From Mississippi, he played on a really, really solid front 7 at Mississippi. I mean, we've talked about all of those guys already. They're awesome. But he was a 13 AP All-American, 4.5 missed tackle rate. Whoa, hello. I like to hear that. 7.3 tackles per game. He has some serious upside. His lateral quickness, constantly square. I mean, he really is constantly square, and that is so important at the linebacker position to change directions and like do things quicker, reading and reacting and all those things. Athletically can cover really well. That constantly being square also helps him with his eliminating his missed tackle rate because he's just straight downhill making plays. his zone coverage is good. His man coverage is, okay. He's a fast player though. He reads and reacts really quickly, and I think we haven't talked about reading and reacting, but that's one of the biggest things at the linebacker position. You could be a 4'8" guy, and you could have a teammate that's a 4'6" guy, but if you read and react faster, all of a sudden you are the faster player on your team because you get to the right spot on the field much quicker. And there's not very much time to decide where to go in like inside the box when you're thinking about a running back is running downhill at you and you have to get to a spot, you have to go. And this guy goes. I don't even know how fast he was at the combine, but he looks fast on film because of this. He's good at sorting through traffic, and then some of his cons, he can add some mass. I mean, I don't think 222 is big enough, and he's a little short, but okay. And then allows players to fall forward. I don't think he has the strength and power that some of the other guys in this class do. That adds to that whole mass thing, possibly adding some mass. But yeah,
Yeah. To answer your question, he unofficially ran a 4.63, or officially ran a 4.63 at the
that's
combine.
moving.
So
Okay, so he was fast.
but yeah, he was just solid all around. One of the most well-rounded linebackers in the country. I mean, he had an 84 pass rush grade, 84.6 run grade, 78 in coverage. He's one of two that linebackers in the country to have at least a grade, or at least in this class, to have at least a grade of 84 or better in both running and pass. The other one was Cody Simon that we talked about previously, but he was a better pass rusher, or I'm sorry, better in coverage.
Right.
Than he was. So he really kind of benefited with the defensive lineman that he worked, and he made the most of his opportunities, and he just got better and better every year, especially in his 1 year at Ole Miss. The missed tackle rate, like you said, that you love to see. It's one of your favorite stats. It is the best in this class. And yeah, he just does a lot of things well. And there's a lot to like and see how he could really develop into being one of the best linebackers in the football, or in football.
Oh yeah. Next guy up, Carson Swessinger. Carson is a ex wide receiver, so he has that athleticism you like to see that helps him in coverage and stuff. He was an AP first team All American. Great to see. 11.3 tackles per game. One of the highest. I don't know. It wasn't the highest because Sean Dolock was a different man at Buffalo, but I know it was one of the highest in the country. 7% missed tackle rate. I almost put Sean Dolock on this list at the in the honorable mentions just to be like, this is the guy that just finds the ball constantly. But Carson is a very, very good at that also. He has the athletic background that we talked about. He has a 90.0 pass rush grade. I know that PFF updates them, so it might be a little bit different than it was prior, but it was a 90.0 when I wrote these notes.
That's what's in front of me as well.
Perfect. There's some words, like very intense words that I love using, but this is the slippery guy. Like, he lines up, and when he comes downhill, he is hard to touch, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, but he slides through players and runs into the backfield, runs through blockers. Very slippery, got super oily hips for change of direction for a guy that moved to linebacker and just was like, I can do it. Sure, why not? Who cares? Navigates the ball carriers really well. He's always around the ball. Like, as you can see with the 11.3 tackles per game, like, he's always around the ball. He's 4 sacks. Like, dude was always there. He's good at playing zone and like reacting. He actually is one of the quickest read and react players in this class for a linebacker, which is so cool for someone that has not played the position very long. So I thought that was really good. Cons, of course, are strength and power. I thought that UCLA put him out of position. So that was something that was interesting to me. They played him at Mike. I think he's an off-ball linebacker, like outside, possibly Will, maybe even Sam at times if they want him there, but he is not going to be necessarily the A-gap player, in my opinion. And that's something that I saw them do way too often. When blockers actually get to him, and he doesn't get to slip off, he cannot get off them. And that has a lot to do with the fact that he's just running into the middle of the O-line a lot of the times and not in space. He's really good in space. I would expect him to move to outside linebacker. And then let's see. Yeah. I mean, he's small. He should add some weight. But then I look at it and it's like he's 242. I was like, there's no freaking way he's 242 on film, though.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like he really only had one true season as like a full time
Right.
starting linebacker. I mean, his first two seasons, combined 27 tackles, and he bumps it up to 136 this year, like you said.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but the biggest thing you said not only is the athleticism because he is a former wide receiver, but he's smart, he's productive, and in his one season as a starter, he was named captain, biochem major,
Yeah,
like
he's
those
a
kinds of
stud.
things. So there's a lot. He's I feel like every defensive coordinator's wet dream in terms of just who do you want leading your team or calling plays or just always being there when it matters. Yeah, lots to like about him. Not a lot of wear and tear on him. So it's a lot of good things coming from a guy who truly broke out of nowhere this year.
Yeah, he was basically a special teams player for those other tackles that you were talking about prior to this year, and finally got his opportunity. And
Just ran with it.
yeah, just it turned out that he was the first team All American, just waiting to get on the field. And
Sure.
it's fine. Um, let's go to the next guy. Let's talk some serious differences based on big boards for us. I want to be honest. Jalen Walker is an inside linebacker to me. He's not a pass rusher. If he plays pass rusher, fine. That's okay. I mean, if that's what people want to do, he was a third team All American. He was a second team All SEC. I want to keep that very close to the vest on this, okay? I put that on there for a reason, okay? He was a second team All SEC player, voted on by the coaches in the SEC, and a third team AP All American. And actually, Chris Paul was also a second team All SEC. Now, 12.1 missed tackle rate. Not good. Not good at all. 62.3 run grade. I think that is the worst in this class. I don't remember off the top of my head. You have it. I know you have it right there, so you can fill me in if I'm wrong, but I know it's right there with I think it's the lowest out of everybody.
Yeah, I'd have to basically search up each one because
Oh,
PFF
sorry.
has 250 in front of me.
It,
But yeah,
it
62 is one of the lowest I've come across.
yeah, it's on the sheet. That's all. That's all I thought I
Okay,
thought you
my
were
bad,
looking at.
my
No,
bad.
yeah, I thought you were looking at that. But his pros, he's got position versatility. He's got a really good first step as an edge rusher. He's a capable chess piece. I think that's really important when you draft him. And I think a lot of linebackers nowadays that are considered off ball can play edge or linebacker truly a lot of the times. We just talked about Carson. Carson had the 90 pass rush grade. Can rush inside and outside. Best move is his high swim inside, which he's very quick at. And then he has a very high motor. I think his motor is awesome. Like I don't hate this guy, but I just think if we're gonna, and we talked about this on a different video, but if we're gonna talk about outliers, he's 6'1". You want to put him at edge at 6'1" with short arms. We're really getting into that outlier conversation of like, do those things work at the NFL level? And they just haven't before. So he's probably an inside linebacker. That's probably his best position. But it is what it is. Edge size is an issue, though, for sure. His missed tackles are an issue. His issues in coverage are a problem. We're getting into a situation where we're much lower on Jalen Walker, and I'm not making things up. If you think he's an edge rusher at the next level, he's an outlier. If you think he's an inside linebacker in the next level, he needs to actually play like an inside linebacker, not have a what was it? Sorry, missed tackle rate of 12.1. Like,
Yeah, and like you said, you were alluding to in the run grade, which is the worst among all the guys that we talked about by a wide margin. Nobody had worse than 72. He had a 62 for
right.
what it's worth. So he's also another guy similar to Carson that 1 year essentially as the full time starter. Years before that, he was kind of situational and. Situational edge rusher in 2023, he had 5 sacks
Right.
with just 20 tackles, which is solid. But yeah, it feels like he's one of those guys that people are pushing him up really high, and it's just like, hey, how much more do we value athleticism than actual production and
Well, exactly.
intangibles? That's kind of our biggest get at that. So I mean, he's kind of rising similar to what Trayvon Walker rose as. The
Yes.
difference is Trayvon is 6'5", 273.
Yeah, he's a
and
freak.
he has all the athletic tools. Like you said, Jalen, he doesn't have the size to be the same kind of similar.
The arm length, the size, the height. He's 243. 6'1" is the problem for me. Like, we want to push him as an edge. But how can we say he's an edge if there's very few edges at that size that have actually worked out? And then he plays it on what, 100 and something snaps this year, not full time, it's really hard for me to be like, yeah, that's the guy. And most of his pass rush snaps, if you look at the pass rush snaps, split them in half. From the edge, he probably had half of them, and from the inside linebacker spot, he had the other half.
Mhm.
So, yeah, he's a chess piece. I believe that. I think he can edge rush if he has to, but I don't think he's built to edge rush, obviously.
And the thing is, he's starting to get vaulted into the top
5.
5.
Yeah, he went to Jacksonville on
Oh,
Daniel Jeremiah's
yeah.
mock
I
draft.
mean, I don't know. Like he just kind of has the vibe of if he's going that high, that might be one that we look back on, even though it's a really solid class. Like, pick a guy in the top 10 that's not going to pan out if he truly does go that high. Like, he might be the first name on my list.
Yeah. I oh, I just feel like we're overthinking him. I think everybody's like, he's got the athleticism. Did you see what he did to Texas? I'm like, fine. He can do that to Texas, whatever. Like, he can have a good game, outlier type of game once in a while, but he's not consistent enough. And what I think he's going to have to do at the NFL level is play inside linebacker, and that 12.1 missed tackle rate is not good enough. I do love his motor. I do love his athleticism, but I just wish I could get him in the second round or the late first round rather than
8th or 5th.
yeah, somewhere in the top 10.
Yep.
Like that just makes more sense to me, and so I would just never draft a guy like that, unfortunately. But someone will. Someone will. Let's do the next guy, who I have a little bit more love for, and will actually play the linebacker position. Jod Campbell, 5.9% missed tackle rate, a 81.0 run grade, an 80.1 coverage grade. I think he was above 80 in everything, if I'm correct off the top of my head.
Yep. Except for pass rush, he was 76. But
Oh,
very
okay.
close.
Okay, fair. He had 5 sacks on the year. He actually came in as an edge rusher, and we've talked about this on a couple videos. He came in as an edge rusher, but then you have Will Anderson, and you have Chris Braswell, and you have Dallas Turner, and all those guys are playing in front of him. He's like, screw this. I want to get on the field. Put me at linebacker. Well, guess what? He went to linebacker. He had 5 sacks from the inside linebacker position. He's an athletic mover. He's a sure tackler. Sideline to sideline speed and ability. He is a freak athlete. Absolute freak athlete. Everything of the word. Capable as a blitzer, downhill explosion. He's very alignment versatile. Mike, will, and edge, like I said. Big plays. He makes big plays. He creates turnovers. I wanted to point out that he was not an AP All-American, but he was first team All-SEC. Above 2 AP All-Americans that were on this board in both Jalen Walker and Chris Paul. So by the coaches at the SEC, he was the better player. Just saying. I think they know something.
Right.
He's just a really good football player. He's going to be 21.4 years old when the season starts. He tore his labrum, and everybody's pushing him down boards. I've actually torn my labrum. I'm a rotator cuff in my right arm. It's not a long-lasting issue as long as you repair it correctly. So, yes, he might miss some time going into the season, possibly. But when he gets back to playing, he is not going to have hindrance from the injury, which is good.
Right.
So,
Yeah, with him, he's kind of. We were early on him being like top linebacker. I mean, if you've watched our other videos that we've praised him, it's just like we just feel like the safety there, the upside's there. He just plays it linebacker like you ideally as a former linebacker would like the position to be played. He got vaulted all the way into top 10 conversations and mock drafts, and then the labrum thing comes out, and all of a sudden now it's just like he feels like a guy that's going to drop, unfortunately. But again, similar to what we mentioned in our defensive line prospect ranking with Walter Nolan, which that's a different reason that he's dropping. Sometimes it just puts you in a better situation or on a better team.
Absolutely.
To where you can just become, it's just like, what were we thinking? So if you watched our mock 2.0, there's 2 basically spots between our 1.0 and our 2.0 that we put that we would just be like, those are home run situations if he fell into those. He's too good to be available at those spots, but he might be just by default.
He went 9th on Mel Kiper's most recent draft to the Saints. That was right before his news came out. Mm-hmm. So I want to see what Mel Kiper does with him on his next draft because honestly, nothing will change from now to the next draft for him. If he drops 10 spots, it's all because of the arm, of the shoulder.
Right.
He'll be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer at that point, and we'll be talking about how he's the predecessor to Levante David and all these things. I mean, he's a good football player, man, and I don't think he'll drop out of the first round no matter what, personally. But
It
if
feels
he
like a
does,
safe
that'd be
bet.
crazy.
Yeah,
Um, let's talk about the rankings between years. This is a much better class.
much better.
Not amazing, but much better. Jahad Campbell and Jalen Walker are both at the top. Then you have Peyton Wilson, who we really, really liked, was older, got injured. The injury concerns pushed him into the later rounds. And then the Steelers pick him up, and he's good for them. And, of course, he's good, right? Yeah. And then Edgerrin Cooper was really good for Green Bay this last year. Carson Schwessinger, who we talked about. And then Junior Colson out of Michigan. He's at the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm waiting for Harbaugh to unlock him because that is his ex-Michigan Wolverine. Chris Paul and Jeffrey Bossa, Demetrius Knight, Danny Stutzman, Barrett Carter, all above the next guy, which is Jeremiah Trotter. Jeremiah Trotter and Barrett Carter played together at Clemson 2 years ago in 2023.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a mixed bag. At least last year, we said that it was a fine class, but just again, no big time prospects. And Peyton Wilson, who to us was by far the best, just had the problem of being significant injuries and being 25. I think at the going into his rookie year. Right?
Yeah, he would have been 25 in his rookie year.
Yeah, exactly. But again, he still panned out. He was really good. And then Edgerrin Cooper and Junior Colson were the ones that were just like, hey, we'll see how it turns out. Edgerrin, strong rookie year. Junior Colson, not as much. But yeah, all these guys really solid. I'll be interested to see where some of these guys land because obviously Jalen Walker's getting vaulted of draft boards. Jihad was until the injury, so he'll still be a fringe first rounder. But after that, Carson, Chris, Jeffrey, and the list goes on and on. Like, I don't know how high or high prioritized the next guys will be. I feel like if it feels like they're all closer, that the outcomes is going to be so wide that it's just kind of like similar to Peyton Wilson last year, where he fell, I think, into the end of the third.
Yeah,
it's just
into
like
the third.
there's
Right
no
before the
way
fourth.
kind of thing. Like it feels like we're on the precipice of that similar thing with some of these guys.
Yeah, I think Carson is probably a second rounder. At the end of the day, it's like late second round, early third. But everybody else is a little bit less comfortable on where I'd put them, I guess. Just because I don't know who will be liked the most, if that makes sense. Like,
Right.
I don't know if somebody's going to be like, well, we need a Demetrius Knight type of player. We need a Chris Paul type of player. Jeffrey Boss is his own type of player anyways. So, any of those guys could be the next guy up. So it's all about stylistically who goes next, in my opinion. Let me stop sharing. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this video. Please tell us what you dislike, and if you have any questions, shoot, I'll answer anything. In the comments, and then like and subscribe on this video, please. We appreciate it. We're trying to get to 250 and then on from there, of course, for our subscribers.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys tuning in. We've been ranking all positions over the last week or two. Offense is done. Defense is in progress. We also came out with our Mod 2.0, like I alluded to previously, so go check that out. And then look forward to all the other draft conversations we'll have. We're basically a month away as of this recording, less than 30 days once this comes out. So it's a whole lot of excitement. Now everything's done. It's all speculation at this point, and just kind of refining what you already know.
Yeah.
And convincing yourself to take stands, because we like to do that. We're not fence straddlers like some people like to be. We take stands, and if we're wrong, we'll admit it, and if we're right, we'll praise ourselves a little bit.
The NFL has to take stands, right, guys? Like, they literally draft players, and so if we're gonna be honest with ourselves and be here to, make the most out of this, we're gonna give y'all everything we have, and if we're wrong, like Cam said, we will. It is what it is. Y'all are more than welcome to put a timestamp on this and come back next year and tell us how wrong we were. But it's not gonna hurt our feelings at all. So
No.
we appreciate y'all hanging out with us, and under 40 minutes. Thank y'all for hanging out.